And welcome to Encroachment episode number 3, the Kickball 365 podcast, where we talk about kickball and occasionally other things. Speaking of other things, it is Sunday night, February 1st, when we are recording this, after the Super Bowl just finished. It's entirely possible that all three of us on the podcast right now are a little bit drunk, probably overfilled on salty meats. So if I start sweating midway through the podcast, don't worry, I'm not nervous about anything. It's just my body trying to leach out all of the salt that I ingested with many ribs. So yes, the Super Bowl is done. We're here with the podcast. I've got Steven with me, also here on this coast. Say hi, Steven.
Hey, guys.
Got Timmy from wherever the hell Timmy is living these days. I occasionally think it's Vegas, but then you see he'll have posts saying he's hanging out in like Peoria or Antarctica. So Timmy, say hi from wherever the hell you are.
Hi, I'm on the same coast in Las Vegas.
Okay, so there's no coast in Las Vegas. There's no ocean in Vegas.
There's a Gold Coast here.
Robbing a casino. See what I did there? So yes, we are actually doing this. We've got, fortunately, Tim as one of the legacy people. Other than that, it's Steven and me. No Matt, no Adrock. We could really be kind of going off the rails with this one without any respectable adult supervision. But that's okay. We've got a few things to talk about. However, before we get started, obviously we don't want to recap the Super Bowl because you all just watched it. There is one thing that I would like to bring up in regards to the Super Bowl that is somewhat relevant to kickball. People who know me know that I have gone on rants at times about kickball team names. Some are good, some are bad, some are okay, some are shitty. I have decided that this year on the circuit, somebody needs to show up to a tournament with the kickball name, The Slap. That will be the best team name ever, and it very likely could take some of the curse off what looks to be an absolutely god-awful miniseries about one parent disciplining another parent's child. Okay? I'll tell you what. You call your team name The Slap, I, with all of my infinite authority in Kickball 365, hereby allow you to discipline other teams' players. So call yourself The Slap and then just go start slapping people, no penalty. How do you like that?
I think that show is going to be absolutely terrible. Hopefully I don't know anyone working on it. To be nowadays, there's probably, I know someone through someone who's working on that show, and man, it's tough to even watch the commercials for that. I'm sorry, like yes. It's a tough game.
Yeah, and with the worst name ever, The Slap. But I contend that would be a great kickball team name. Call yourself The Slap, then you can go slap players on other teams, and I guarantee you won't get a red card.
I would love to start that team with you gentlemen any day. You just
yes,
win and win.
Timmy, Steven, and Patty, we will be on The Slap.
That's hilarious, man. That's hilarious.
Whiskey's tasty. So getting down to the actual business of kickball, we've got a few things to discuss today that actually relate to the game. First of which is about the structure. There's been a little bit of change in the structure document and the structure of the circuit for 2015. So, Steven, Timmy, who wants to talk about that?
I'll take this one. All right, so the 2015 structure of the circuit will go out this week, if not Monday or Tuesday. There's a few things that have changed, just to be clear about everything. There are 3 divisions to the circuit now. Of course, there's always been the co-ed, and we added the women's, and we're also adding the college division this year. So those will be the 3 divisions of the circuit. We've got a couple of really exciting tournaments that we hope go ahead and go through on the college standpoint. We also introduced sanctioned events and some more league events. A couple of you have heard us refer to events as sanctioned events. The Best of the West event in Long Beach this year is going to be a sanctioned event as opposed to an official Kickball 365 event. Essentially, we're just kind of cutting down to 13 to 16 events per year on the official circuit. And if we want to throw other events, or if things are going to happen that same year, then we'll look at those as sanctioned events instead of official events, meaning they still use our ball, our rules, our structure from a tournament standpoint. They're just not part of the official circuit. We are also opening up a handful of leagues this year. That's a huge focus for us in 2015. In addition to running the smoothest tournaments around, getting some leagues up and off the ground are also going to be important. Prize pool, and all of this is going to come out in a blog post this week as well, but the prize pool is coming out. We defined established team versus available team. Available teams can't have any more than 40% of a current team's roster, otherwise it is not considered an available team. We make that distinction clear this year as well. We define what the rookie team is for rookie team tournaments. Another great thing about the structure this year is your points don't expire. So we had some teams that went to events early, forgot to claim their points within the 30 days, and then those kind of fell off and gave them a little bit of a lower seeding going into the Cup. For 2015, your points don't expire, and also registration for the Circuit Cup Championship Weekend. That's what we're calling now, the Circuit Championship Weekend. That's open now. Points no longer expire. The transfer policy did stay the same, so you still get transfer. But other than that, pretty straightforward. Everything will, like I said, will be out later this week, hopefully by Monday or Tuesday. If we can't get a blog out to you guys, at least you kind of know what's coming on. But that is the structure of the circuit for 2015, and it will be in your inboxes momentarily.
All right. All right. Now, obviously, as time goes on and once it's released and published, I'm sure questions will come up about it, and we can discuss more of the specifics about certain changes in the structure in future shows. But one that I wouldn't mind addressing right now is just in regards to the idea of a sanctioned event versus a circuit event. You mentioned Best of the West is a sanctioned event, not a circuit event. I suspect that Albuquerque would also be a sanctioned event, not a circuit event, if I've got that correct, yes?
That is 100% correct, yes. Meaning, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, to clarify what a sanctioned versus a circuit event is. So a sanctioned event uses the circuit rule book, probably has all of the usual things that all the tournaments have, whether it's, some social parties, possibly a prize pool, very likely a prize pool. The only difference between a sanctioned and circuit event, if I have this right, is that a sanctioned event will not get you circuit tour points, whereas a circuit event will. Do I have that right?
That is correct. And that's the biggest difference is the sanctioned events, they don't go towards your total point number for the Cup when it comes to your ranking. So if you were to attend a sanctioned event, it'd be a lot of the same experiences from an official circuit event with that one distinction. Teams would not take any points from that event to add to their total number and their seeding going into the year.
Gotcha. And I suppose another question about that is, does obviously your performance in a sanctioned event does not give you any circuit tour points.
Correct.
But knowing that in addition to the circuit tour points and the circuit ranking or the circuit standings, there's also the weird ranking formula, and I can't remember who's in charge of that. Will sanctioned events have any impact on the mysterious mumbo-jumbo of the rankings side of things?
No. When it comes to the official Circuit Cup rankings, they are done based off official Circuit Cup events.
Okay.
So it's the same way. To the same extent, you can't however you finish in a sanctioned event isn't going to assist you with any points. It also won't hurt you negatively. And of course, with teams, there aren't, because it's not an official circuit event, the 40% availables rule, the transfer rule, like things like that, don't necessarily. You can go with whomever you want to a sanctioned event, and your roster can be a makeup of whatever you like for a sanctioned event because it's not an official circuit tour location. It's not an official circuit tour city. So that there's also that aspect of it too.
Gotcha. So with that, it's a little bit, obviously there you don't get certain perks and benefits of an official circuit event, but there are also some restrictions of a circuit event that don't affect you. So, for example, if 4 teams wanted to get together and show up as one team, so say there was a sanctioned but not official circuit event, Situation and Flying V and Shockwave and somebody else could all get together and form one super team of 80 people and show up to that event, and there wouldn't be any issues as far as the circuit points.
That is correct. Circuit events are clearly defined. They go by all of the official circuit rules. Sanctioned events are also clearly defined, but there's not the restrictions of a circuit event regarding rosters and things like that. So, short answer, yeah. It doesn't hurt you, it doesn't help you. If you still want to go and have some fun, then you're absolutely free to do that as well.
I want to see that team with 80 people, and I want the team name to be Fat and Bloated.
I will say this about a sanctioned event, though. If you do win, it's not like it's all for nothing. The champion of each sanctioned event does get entry, albeit with 0 points, to Circuit Cup. So, it could be worth something. It just it depends on everybody's perspective, what they're trying to accomplish.
Excellent. So obviously more to come about the updates to the structure. Doesn't sound like anything major, just a little bit of refinements here and there, and some clarifications about certain things that we knew were coming, and now it's official. Things like the college events and that sort of thing. So the next question is, even though now that we've got some change in the structure, do we have any changes in the rule book this year that we can start to talk about, knowing that the rule book is not published as of the recording of this episode, but the rule book is on its way out. It sounds like it's getting close to being finalized. Are there any major rule changes that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit, considering I am on the rules committee. So the rule book is not out yet. I'll clarify earlier that the structure document, I believe, should be live, or it was live as of a few days ago. If it's not, I'll double check and get that live. But the rule book, it was supposed to be published almost 2 weeks ago. It's done. What we're doing is doing all the refinements and edits behind the scenes, just linking, hey, reference this rule, reference that rule, because all these numbers change. But as far as what's changed, it's just like the structure document where we've only had a couple of little minor changes and refinements. The two biggest ones, though, that I can think of off the top of my head, one, we did a little bit more clarification on encroachment in the field, specifically like for chargers. We made the rule to be the same as catchers, where we're going to go by the plane of the body versus the line, rather than go by, before it was kind of more open-ended. And we saw some issues specifically in San Antonio where refs in different games, some were calling it with plane of body, some were calling it with the back plant foot. So we just went ahead and shorted up. We talked about it. We said, let's do plane of body. And so that's one thing that's going to go into effect, and it's going to be discussed at every ref clinic this year. The second biggest change is going to involve red cards. Basically, it's just a little minor tweak to the penalty. Instead, you still, if you come back up in the lineup, you still get an out. But now, if you go back out on defense, you have to play down that one player of the same sex. So if one guy gets ejected in the 4th or 5th inning, well, that team's going to have to play with 9 players in the field, 5 guys, 4 girls. Or, if it goes into overtime, God forbid, they're going to have to play with 7 players. It's just a little penalty to keep things a little consistent with how hockey does it and how soccer specifically does it. So that's going to be one of the biggest changes, because last thing we want is any kind of altercations with referees or arguing. So we're just trying to make sure that it never gets to that point. Otherwise, it's not just you that's penalized, and one of your extra 10 people on the bench can sub in, and game can keep going. Your team's going to be hurting pretty big if you get a red card. So as far as that, I should hope the rule book will be out in the next few days, tops, but we'll see.
Excellent. Well, I will just I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate, speaking voice of the people, because last time I checked, I am people. Obviously, the encroachment seems pretty straightforward, clarifying plane of the body as opposed to plant foot, back foot, kicker's foot for the catcher, etc. So that's good that there will be some clarification on that, although, speaking as a player who has played kickball, be curious to see how much difference that clarification actually makes, specifically in regards to catcher encroachment, for any games that do not have a specific encroachment ump. We know that's a very difficult penalty to call, and is one of the trickier ones. But I like the clarification so that even with the difficulties of calling it, at least there's a commonality of what the infraction rule is. Now, I do have one question in regards to the red card. And I suppose it probably was similar to last year, but could potentially be an issue this year. So yes, if a player on a team receives a red card, that player is ejected and creates an out in the kicking order where that player was kicking. Now, in addition, there's a punitive penalty on defense as well, in that they have to play down one player of that gender. So, here's the question. Say you have rostered up in your kicking order 4 girls, which is not uncommon in co-ed games. One of the girls gets a red card and gets ejected. Now they're down to 3 girls, both on offense and in defense, which is technically not allowed to play with only 3 girls in a game. So if you only have 4 girls rostered up on your kicking order and one of them gets ejected, does that create an automatic forfeit, or what is the protocol if the game can continue?
Actually, yeah, that wouldn't create an automatic forfeit. There is another rule in the rule book, kind of an emergency situation, where if you start the game with 4 or the minimum, and you drop below the minimum at any point, the game can continue with below the minimum. So in that specific case, a girl gets ejected, you only have 3, you're allowed to continue. And keep in mind that this red card ejection is only valid for that game. Sure. The player who gets the red card can't play the next game. But I believe that would have to be a forfeit the next game if that player cannot play. Because you get a red card, you're out the next game.
Mm-hmm.
So
you can't. Patty, just to clear that up, it's what he's saying is if you have the 4 girls and one got ejected, you could complete the game that you're in with the 3, but you could not start a new game with only 3. So you couldn't start your second pool play game with only 3 girls. So if you brought 4 girls to a tournament and it's early in the day and one gets ejected, you're not going to be able to start a new game. You're basically going to complete that one game you had if it's a 9 a.m. game or whatever time game, but you can't start a game below the minimum. So
right, that's correct. That's essentially how the rules intertwine with each other.
Yeah, makes sense to you, Patty?
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. So, and if you've got a 5th girl for the next game, then you can go to the bench to bring somebody in, because we know one of the circuit rules is if someone is ejected, you can't go to your bench. Your substitute players who aren't on the initial kicking order, you can't go to them if a player is ejected.
Correct.
But in the case of going to the next game, where person X is not allowed to play the next game, then you can go to your sub bench. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Keep in mind, I'm only asking these questions because everybody on the circuit's going to be going over these rules with a fine-tooth comb. Some of these guys are even goddamned lawyers, so they're real good at finding these things. I'm just trying to dig them up before they do to get the questions answered before they come in with the nitpick. Yeah, well, according to 16.2, Section A, which I still guarantee it's going to happen. So as much as I try to preempt some of those conversations, they're still going to happen because, hey, I'm no lawyer.
Yeah,
as much as I know the rules, I still walk around the rule book at every tournament, all day, every day, and I still get asked these questions. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, the dialogue is what's good. Us doing this right here around the rules, and then even whenever they're released, there's still going to be more questions to come up. But us having this medium to kind of talk about them and go through them whenever we need to, or if there's some FAQs about some stuff, that's the whole point of this. So ask away, man.
Yeah, and even I can come up with the wackiest scenarios that could come out of my brain, and I guarantee someone will come up with a weirder scenario to try and challenge and/or understand the rules, because that's how we are. I swear to God, kickball players shouldn't be playing kickball. We should be playing goddamn chess. But chess. Yeah, but chess where you can change the rules or interpret the rules differently. So, is there a Calvin ball version of chess? That's what kickball players need to be playing with their, fine-tuned reading of the rules, and yes, but in this situation we might be able to get away with something, and we'll put in an eligible receiver who's actually the left tackle. And see, God damn it, I brought it back to the Super Bowl again. Fuck, I'm sorry. That's my bad. That game is done.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't have a dog in the fight. I wasn't a big Seahawks or Patriots fan. Either way, my team is the Dallas Cowboys. Love them or hate them. But that was a great game, man. I liked watching all the way through the end. Last year's Super Bowl was quite different, so I at least appreciated the fact that there was a game this year instead of a one-sided blowout.
Yeah. And it did come down to the very end, like all the best kickball games do. I seem to recall Shockwave versus Meatballs, round of 16, Circuit Cup 2014. That one came down to the very end. Hell of a game to watch. I mean, extraordinarily boring if you don't know anything about kickball, but a hell of a game to watch. So I guess kickball is a lot like football, except that we're allowed to take HGH. Anybody know where I can get some steroids? I could use them. I'm getting up there in years, and a little bit of chemical boost can only help. No?
No.
Moving on, though, this is something that I want to talk about, Patty. And you and I have kind of discussed it behind the scenes a little bit, and I kind of wanted to talk about it on air.
See, Steven, real quick, you're making for bad TV right here. So don't let the people know that we talked about it behind the scenes. Just go ahead and challenge me with the question, and I will answer.
You're retarded. You said something last week. that perked my ears, and wanted to bring it up, and we kind of talked about it, and then said, you know what, this would be good to bring up on the podcast. So here we are. You said that Los Angeles is definitely the largest market in Southern California, possibly the largest kickball market in the country. I then asked you if you really believe that, and if people really believe that. Your answer was what?
Well, I mean, aren't we? We've got the weather. We can play kickball 12 months out of the year. Between Waka and a couple of smaller independent leagues, you can play kickball 7 days a week. I mean, there's a lot of kickball to be played here. So yeah, aren't we the largest kickball market in the country?
There is a lot of kickball to be played here in Southern California because you can play year-round, and there are several leagues. What I don't want to be misconstrued or misperceived is league kickball, social kickball, and competitive circuit kickball. We do competitive circuit tournament kickball. From that standpoint, unfortunately for right now, not yet. LA is not our largest market yet for Kickball 365 in the circuit. I understand how people can have a perception that LA is the largest market and Southern California is the largest market because there is kickball to be played here every day. Unfortunately, it's not for our company yet. That opportunity isn't there for our company yet. It's when it comes to influencing policy for WACA, Southern California has a large foothold on that because so much of, I'm not going to pretend to know WACA's books at all. What they do behind the scenes is what they do. But WACA is a very prominent figure in Southern California kickball because they have so many leagues, because you can do so many things year-round. But I don't want people to confuse that for us. From a competitive kickball standpoint, we do have a great core of players here for the circuit, but when it comes to being the largest market for us, it's just not there yet. Whenever you look at the East Coast area and you look at tournaments in DC, Virginia, Florida, and they're bringing in, 28, 25, 30 teams, etc., I can pretty much name at this particular point in time, and Patty, so can you. You can pretty much name the handful of people that are going to travel and play kickball from the greater LA area, and even down into the San Diego, SoCal riots of teams as well. So I don't want people to confuse LA being the largest market for Waka and LA being the largest market for Kickball 365 as being the same thing. It's definitely not the same thing.
Well, and I mean, just from a numerical standpoint, let's talk about that a little bit as far as the specifics. I mean, yeah, there are the 4 or 5 Southern California teams, including San Diego, that will travel to elsewhere in the state and even out of state occasionally. And then there's, I want to say, what did SoCal send last year? We sent 4 teams to the Circuit Cup Championship. We had SOFA, Brew, Crew, Cartel, which is half LA, half Arizona, Gordon Bombays, and Gargoyles. Did I miss any? So that's the 4 from LA to San Antonio. I mean, how many did say? Well, how many teams were in the Circuit Cup Championship? 32.
32.
Okay, and we only sent 4. And how many were from Florida? Probably a lot. How many were from the D.C., Virginia area? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of starting to see your point. But hey, okay, well, no, let's not talk about travel because travel's a weird thing as well. Okay, so last year's Best of the West, how many teams total did we have, considering that most of those were Southern California? I think we had a couple of out-of-state teams that came in, notably Shockwave, who came in and won it, you bastards. But yeah, so how many teams did we have play at Best of the West last year?
15.
Okay, and well, I mean, as a good counterpoint, how many played it? Like, say, you mentioned Virginia Beach. I mean, we know that South Florida is one of the biggest regular season tournaments of the year, but the Virginia Beach tournament or the DC KO, how many teams were at those tournaments?
21 and 24, and they were only capped because of field space.
Okay. So, but then let me hit you with this question. There was the choice not to have a tournament in Los Angeles this year, even though at the Best of the West has gotten a whole slew of local LA teams, including the 4 or 5 that we talked about that travel a fair bit, as well as some others. But then you've got a place like Denver, where we go to Denver and there's only 2 Colorado teams.
That's a great point, because this is conversation that we had on our end as well, as far as like where to do it, where not to do it kind of situations. The thing about Denver is, even though there weren't realistically, like you said, 2 or 3, like there weren't a lot of local teams, that's still a tournament at over 20 teams at. So people enjoy traveling to that city. They enjoy going, and so that tournament, even without the local core in Denver, it was still a 20-plus team tournament. So when you look at whenever you go ahead.
You are shattering my worldview here, man. I mean, God damn it, we're Los Angeles. We're Southern California. We got like girls in bikinis roller skating down the street. Everybody wants to be here. We're the shit. I mean, the only other city in the country that can even compete with us is New York. We don't necessarily like New York. We respect New York. We respect the shit out of New York, even if we don't like them very much. And you're telling me here that LA, 12 months of sun and 7 days of kickball a week, and our tournament is only 15 teams, and we've only got 4 or 5.
Well, here you also got to look at this. Like, I don't want you, with us having this discussion, the point isn't for me to say, you bad LAers, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
I think, I mean, hell, I live here. I love it here in Southern California, but we also have to be, what I want to do is I want us to be realistic, and I don't want people in my backyard, to say, like, what are you guys doing, kind of a thing. Like, why are you snubbing us, or why are you doing, and it's like, I want us to be as transparent as possible when it comes to how we're running our business. And I mean, with me being CEO, everyone here knows me. I've been the California SoCal kickball guy for a very long time now. So me coming into this position, part of my personality is wanting to be sure that everyone is as involved as they can possibly be. And in doing that, I want to be as open as we can about how we make the decisions we make, why we make the decisions we make, and how we plan on doing so moving forward. So part of this discussion is just to help you and people understand, like, these are the metrics that we're working with whenever we sit down to figure out, should we throw a tournament here or there, and figure out just the plan in general. These were the numbers that we were working with. And I was one of those people, too, to be like, no way, like, I'm about to become CEO. You're not going to take my tournament off the table. You know what I mean? And then whenever I started looking at numbers, I was like, wow, like, I get it. You know, when it comes to what to do this year as far as rotating what cities and, you know, all that kind of stuff, I was like, I get it. We should absolutely try to, you know, host some players in some different cities and figure out what people like, what people don't like, etc. So, yeah, man.
Well, I think you just.
Right. Well, it's not so much that I was feeling snubbed or browbeaten for the idea of you know, I mean, it's breaking my worldview. I mean, you know, I maybe I had a little bit too much of the SoCal arrogance of that I was more important than I actually am. Holy shit, this is cathartic. I actually feel good about this. I mean, you know, I'm getting this stuff off my chest. And, well, there's a certain freedom to not being as important as you think you are. I'm getting used to that is good information to know, and I mean, you know, yeah, when you talk about the numbers, no, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, you know, I enjoy the Denver tournament, but you know, I was looking at it the wrong way. It's like, why go to Denver? People in Denver don't even want to play in their own tournament, but here in SoCal, everybody wants to play in that tournament. But then you look at the raw numbers. SoCal, the best of the West, we got 15 teams last year, and Denver had, what, 21, 22?
Yeah.
That's a bigger tournament, so apparently more people want to go to that one. I can't argue with that one.
Well, so, and Patty, it goes back to a key word that Steven said, which I want to open up and make public, is that it's not like Best of the West is going away permanently. This is just a 1 year. The idea here is for the long term, at least for some of the smaller tournaments. I'll call it under 20. Let's use that as a magic number. So Best of the West, you know, San Diego would fall in that category. Just we're going to try to rotate some of those cities in and out every so many years. So it just happened that the first year of this, we did the one tournament that's been here the longest on the West Coast. Does that make sense? So Best of the West will be back next year.
Yes.
As a circuit tournament. Now, hang on, let me just confirm something, and then I think I had like an incredible thought in my brain. Best of the West is happening not as a circuit tour tournament, but as a sanctioned 365 tournament. Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Only thing about Best of the West is it does not give points towards your Circuit Cup Championship ranking, right?
Yes.
Right.
And as we have seen historically over the past few years, it doesn't matter what rank you go into the Circuit Cup Championship, because every team is fucking good. Even if you're in first place after the regular season, you're still going to have a really shitty day of pool play. So, all right, who gives a fuck? You got Best of the West, so you don't get points for it. Go play it anyway. You want to travel to just to qualify for Circuit Cup? Go down to San Diego. Go up to San Francisco. Quit bitching, Southern California. You still got plenty of kickball to play.
Wow.
I can't have speechless.
I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. It's good information to have, and I mean, yeah. It feels like a snub to Southern California that Best of the West is not this year an official sanctioned tour stop. But when you look at the bigger picture, does it really matter? No.
Hey, no. I like, Patty, you said yourself that you are a man of the people, and once people start listening to what you were just saying and kind of walking themselves through that same breakthrough, hopefully we can all be on the same page.
Hopefully, but there is I do have a secret that I don't want anybody to notice, so don't tell anybody. But the people hate me. Anyway, all right. So, well, good. I'm glad we could have this catharsis. I'm glad we can talk about the rules a little bit, about the structures. I'm sure there'll be some more coming up in the future about all of the specifics, particularly as the conversation on the new Facebook page gets a little bit busier, and you know, address any concerns or issues that people have. And You know what I think the biggest problem is? It's been like, what, 2.5 months since we've had any sort of like circuit kickball tournament. We're, what, 4 weeks away now from one in South Florida? Once we start playing tournaments again, we'll stop having these inane conversations about random minutia bullshit, and we'll talk about the important things, like whose dick is bigger out on the kickball field, because, you know, that's what we do before tournaments, is get the people to come on and talk about how well they're going to do. And then watch them tank.
And that will wrap it up for me, guys. Patty, you got anything else before you break it down?
I've got nothing. Yeah, go play kickball.
Yep, go play kickball. Timmy?
I have nothing.
All right.
All good.
All right, Padraig, close this out, buddy. It's your show.
This is the end of episode 3. I don't think we did anything to cross the line tonight, but that's okay. You don't need to get an encroachment on every play. You know, just a few times a game. So, you know, try to cross the line a few times a month. We were actually, I think, fairly reasonable today. So, until next time, which will be next week, probably around this time, or next week around this time after this time when we actually get the link posted so you can watch it. I'm Patty. That's Steven. The other one's Tim. Hopefully, AdRock will be back next week.